Welcome to USA Trending Update. I am Papu, and today we bring you a deep, forward-looking news report on one of the most compelling young stories in global tennis. A player whose rise has already captured imaginations across continents and whose next chapter could redefine expectations at the sport's biggest stages. This report examines what Alexandra Eala could do at the Australian Open in 2026, a tournament that may mark a defining first in her career and a moment of arrival for a talent long discussed, but still unfolding. Alexandra Eala enters the conversation about the 2026 Australian Open with a unique blend of promise, patience, and perspective. By the time the Melbourne summer arrives, Eala is expected to be older, stronger, and more seasoned than the teenage prodigy first introduced to many fans through junior dominance and headline-making victories over established professionals. Yet the intrigue surrounding her is not merely about age or ranking. It is about readiness, opportunity, and the subtle convergence of preparation and belief that often defines a breakthrough slam performance. For Eala, Australia in 2026 may not simply be another tournament on the calendar. It may be the first time the draw, the surface, the conditions, and her own evolving game align in a way that allows her to announce herself fully on the sport's most demanding stage. The Australian Open has long been known as a tournament that rewards boldness. The hard courts of Melbourne Park favor clean ball striking, quick decision-making, and mental resilience under the punishing summer heat. For Alexandra Eala, these conditions present both a challenge and an invitation. Her left-handed game, built on early timing, sharp angles, and a willingness to redirect pace, has the potential to disrupt opponents who prefer rhythm and predictability. In 2026, that tactical unpredictability could become her calling card in Melbourne, especially against higher-ranked players who may not relish facing a confident left-hander early in a slam. What makes Eala's potential first major run at the Australian Open especially compelling is the way her game has been evolving. Over recent seasons, she has worked to add controlled aggression to her baseline play, increasing the weight of her forehand while improving her ability to finish points at the net. The Australian Open, with its relatively true bounce and faster hard courts compared to other majors, often rewards players who can step inside the baseline and take time away from opponents. If Eala arrives in 2026 with a more assertive mindset and a serve that consistently earns free points, she could find herself dictating play rather than reacting to it. A crucial shift for any young contender. There is also the question of expectations. For the first time at an Australian Open, Alexandra Eala may enter not as a wild card curiosity or a junior champion making tentative steps into the professional draw, but as a recognized name with measurable results behind her. That shift in perception can be liberating or burdensome depending on how it is handled. Sources close to her development have often highlighted her composure and her ability to treat each match as a problem to be solved rather than a moment to be feared. In Melbourne, where the spotlight is intense and the schedule relentless, that calm approach could be her greatest ally. The significance of 2026 lies not only in Eala's personal trajectory, but also in the broader context of women's tennis. The tour continues to experience generational change with established champions facing increasing pressure from younger, fearless challengers. The Australian Open has frequently served as a launching pad for new stars, and history suggests that a deep run by a rising player can alter the balance of confidence across an entire season. For Eala, a strong showing in Melbourne could do more than earn ranking points. It could reshape how opponents prepare for her, how sponsors invest in her, and how fans perceive her ceiling. One of the most closely watched aspects of Eala's 2026 Australian Open campaign will be her draw. Early round matchups often determine whether a player can build momentum or is forced to expend emotional and physical energy too soon. If Eala draws a series of opponents who allow her to establish rhythm, her confidence could grow with each passing round. Conversely, a challenging first round opponent might test her resilience immediately. Yet, even in adversity, the Australian Open has shown that players who embrace long grinding matches early can emerge hardened and dangerous as the tournament progresses. Physical conditioning will also play a decisive role. Melbourne's heat is unforgiving, and matches can swing dramatically as temperatures rise. By 2026, Eala's team will likely place significant emphasis on endurance, recovery, and heat management. Her ability to maintain intensity deep into third sets, to stay mentally sharp during extended rallies, and to manage her body through the tournament's demanding schedule will be closely scrutinized. Success at the Australian Open often belongs to those who can suffer patiently, and Eala's growth in this area may determine how far she goes. Another element that could define Alexandra Eala's first major impact at the Australian Open is her adaptability. The modern women's game is rich with contrasting styles, from power hitters who dominate with pace to counter-punchers who thrive on defense and consistency. Eala's versatility, honed through years of international competition, allows her to adjust tactics mid-match. In 2026, this adaptability could be the difference between a narrow loss and a statement win, especially against opponents unfamiliar with her patterns or uncomfortable with her left-handed spin. The mental side of Grand Slam tennis cannot be overstated, and the Australian Open is often where emotional control is tested most severely. The tournament's length, combined with the intensity of the environment, can amplify nerves and self-doubt. For Eala, whose career has already included moments of sudden attention and high expectations, the challenge will be to remain grounded. Observers have noted her ability to compartmentalize pressure, focusing on execution rather than outcome. If that mindset holds in Melbourne, it could allow her to play freely, unburdened by the weight of what-if scenarios. There is also the symbolic importance of what Alexandra Eala could represent at the Australian Open in 2026. As a player who has inspired fans far beyond traditional tennis strongholds, her presence in the later rounds would resonate globally. Representation matters in sport, and Eala's journey has already encouraged a new generation of young athletes to believe in pathways once considered distant. A breakthrough performance in Melbourne would amplify that impact, transforming her from a promising figure into a tangible example of possibility. Strategically, Eala's serve will be under the microscope. While not traditionally known as a power server, her precision and placement have improved steadily on Australian Open courts where aggressive returning is common. A reliable serve can be a shield against momentum swings. If Eala can consistently hit her spots, mix speeds effectively, and protect her service games under pressure, she will give herself the platform needed to challenge higher-ranked opponents. Break opportunities are precious at Grand Slams, and holding serve efficiently often separates contenders from participants. Equally important will be her return game, an area where Eala has shown flashes of brilliance. The Australian Open often features players who rely heavily on first serve dominance. Eala's anticipation and footwork allow her to neutralize big servers by getting balls back into play and extending rallies. In 2026, her willingness to take calculated risks on return could tilt matches in her favor, especially against opponents who struggle when points become physical. As the tournament progresses, the narrative around Alexandra Eala could evolve rapidly. Early wins might be framed as promising signs. A surprise upset could spark widespread discussion. A run into the second week would shift expectations entirely. Media attention can be both fuel and distraction, and how Eala manages that spotlight will be part of her story. Her previous experiences suggest a player who understands the importance of routine and focus, qualities that could serve her well amid the noise of a Grand Slam. The Australian Open in 2026 may also present Eala with her first opportunity to play on some of the sport's biggest courts in front of massive crowds. The energy of Rod Laver Arena or Margaret Court Arena can elevate performances or expose nerves. For a player who thrives on competition and has often spoken about embracing big moments, this environment could be energizing. The crowd's response to her shot-making, her resilience, and her sportsmanship could become an intangible advantage, particularly in tight matches. In assessing what Alexandra Eala will do at the Australian Open in 2026, it is important to balance optimism with realism. Grand Slam breakthroughs are rarely linear, and even the most talented players face setbacks. Yet the signs point toward a tournament that could mark a first in several senses. Perhaps her first main draw win in Melbourne, her first victory over a seeded player at the Australian Open, or even her first appearance in the second week of a major. Each of these milestones would represent significant progress and validate the steady development that has defined her career thus far. The ripple effects of a strong Australian Open showing would extend well beyond Melbourne. Confidence gained in January often shapes the remainder of the season, influencing performance on other surfaces and in other high-stakes events. For Eala, success in Australia could set a tone of belief and ambition, encouraging her to play more assertively and to trust her instincts against the best in the world. Tennis history is filled with examples of players whose careers pivoted after a single inspired slam run. As 2026 approaches, the Anticipation surrounding Alexandra Eala's Australian Open campaign will continue to build. Analysts will debate her draw. Fans will track her form and opponents will prepare with heightened awareness. Yet, when the first ball is struck in Melbourne, much of that speculation will fade, replaced by the simple, demanding task of winning 1 point at a time. For Eala, that focus on the present moment has always been central to her approach, and it may be the key to unlocking her potential on one of tennis's grandest stages. Ultimately, what Alexandra Eala will do at the Australian Open in 2026 remains unwritten, as all sporting futures are, but the convergence of her growth, her mindset, and the unique demands of Melbourne suggests a tournament rich with possibility. Whether it becomes a breakthrough run, a hard-earned learning experience, or the first chapter of a new era in her career, the Australian Open of 2026 is poised to be a landmark moment. And as the world watches under the bright Australian sun, one thing is clear. Alexandra Eala will not arrive as a question mark, but as a contender, determined to write her own story. This has been Trending Now USA. I am Bella, and we will continue to follow Alexandra Eala's journey as it unfolds on the world's biggest tennis stages.